I was for a long time, the only son of a rather prosperous middle-class family. My sister was born when I was 10, so
Okay.
I continued. She was, sort of a minor irritation. I was still the only son. And I think I was all set to go to the University of Illinois, but I knew that Chicago had a competitive examination for scholarships, and I took it and got it. By the way, I eventually found out I was the highest ranking person on the exam.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, that's
Was this for law school or for undergraduate?
the law school,
Okay.
whole university.
Okay.
And then when I got there, I doubled up. I finished in Chicago you had a 2-year generals and then 2-year specialization. And in my case, the specialization was going to be law. And I was able to do the first 2 years in 1 year, which you could do at Chicago. So I then went into law school, and the law school had a big effect on me. And I can't now remember exactly how it happened. I met Buchanan, but obviously this was very, very important in my life. Once I had met him, I could remember a lot of things we had together. And we invented public choice. And he got involved in various things, including his family administering it and trying to set up a national society and so forth. So I probably did more writing in the field than he did. But it was a joint project. And I continued in it and got interested in other. From my standpoint, I took a law course, and when I graduated, but all the time I was in law school, I was interested in economics. I'd had only one course in economics, but I was interested in it. And so I kept up with, I read the journals and things like that. But anyway, I went, when I graduated from the law school, I got a job in downtown Chicago, which lasted 4 months, in which I was a junior member of a small but fairly distinguished law school, a law firm rather. Mm-hmm. There were 3 of us. The 2 others had been there a long time. I was just there for a short time. But anyway, I mainly went to the library and looked things up, but mm-hmm. Occasionally I appeared in court, not very much. But in any event, after a while, I had passed the Foreign Service exam, and I went to my boss in the law school and pointed out that I liked the law appointment, the law firm, but that the pay that the Foreign Service was offering was much higher. And I said that I thought that I couldn't very well. And he said it was his patriotic duty to see to it that fine, upstanding young men like me went out to serve their country. Which left me no alternative.
That was the end of your law firm career.
Right. The basic idea of public choice was mine. I had decided that when I was in China, that I was going that political science was backward and it should be economized, converted to economics. And I had begun doing work on that. And I was able to convince Buchanan that he should too, and he, of course, popped in and did. At the beginning, the work was certainly at least joint, or maybe he had more to do with it than I did. Eventually, what with his being a department head and trying to set up a national society in the area and so forth, he stopped writing very much in the field, and I continued, of course. But in any event, I continued there in South Carolina, in Virginia, and eventually we just worked on upwards, just higher and higher, as you can see. Eventually became, I never became a department. I didn't want to be a department head. I did become the equivalent of a distinguished professor. But and I'd founded my journal, which was a big step.
And what journal was that?
Public Choice. You can see and I should say that we attracted some European and Japanese scholars to there, with the result that they're now Public Choice are journals in Europe and Japan. I should say I'm rather unhappy. I've been reading recently. It seems to me that Public Choice which is an expansion of economics, in fact, in recent years has sort of retreated back into economics. It isn't as much different as it was before, which is too bad. But nevertheless, let's assume that's temporary, that it will go up to having the same kind of thing. All I can say is that it came to me suddenly, and it's gone all over the place.
Yes, yeah.
It's founded almost a new discipline. But when I say that, I don't think Adam Smith would be at all surprised by it. He also knew that politicians were trying to make a living, so forth. It's true. A lot of things that economists had just complained about as being undesirable, which heaven knows they usually are, we looked at it as why did some people in favor of it? And there are people who gain. A tariff that required anybody European who copied one of my books to pay a high fee would improve my royalties. When I was started, I would say that overwhelmingly intellectuals were closet socialists. That is, they really thought the government should take over almost everything. That's no longer true. And I don't think, I think our work had something to do with that, but it was not, we're not the major causes of it. We were just part of it. But now, that is still true. The modern economic journals, the political science journals, which I read, do not show any signs of sort of hidden socialism, which they used to show. But on the other hand, they also don't show much signs of public choice. They tend to be conventional economics. The answer to that is I don't think so. I wish they had, but they came to attention in the sense that they were willing to ask me to testify before committees and things like that. But I can't see any evidence that they were affected by it. But of course, it's not obvious how I would. I was saying that they were engaged in trying to maximize their own wealth and by passing bills that they thought would collect votes. And they knew this already. It was just they weren't accustomed to talking about it, and they didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to take, when they were speaking, they talked about how they were going out doing good.
Is there anything that you've written that you think is underappreciated? What's the favorite thing that you've written that other people don't seem to know about?
Well, many of my articles are quite obscure. I think most people, I have some stuff on the way of science advances, and I don't think most people know much about that. But it's not obvious that that's a great loss. I'm not, my theory in this case isn't very advanced. Not knowing about an incomplete theory by me is not disastrous. I would have liked to, if other people had picked up on what little I had done and produced a major theory, that'd been nice.
And so that's a theory of the economics of scientific thought? Is that?
Yes.
Huh. So that's different from your writing on biology, like the civilizations of non-human
no, yes, it is different.
That's different from that.
Yeah, actually, I read science fiction a lot, and so the civilization of non-humans impresses me. And, you know, if you look around, let's say an anthill, that's a very developed society. And the ants have practically no brains, so they can't have planned it. It has to have been selected by evolution. And the fact that the ants and the termites, which are completely unrelated, except they're both insects, have the same kind of society, and that we human beings, who are also unrelated to either of them, have a somewhat similar society, indicates probably that there's something characteristic about society that leads to this kind of development. And it's certainly an efficient one. But the fact remains that although the ants and termites and human beings are all successful, they make up only a very small percentage of the animal forms of the world. And I'm interested in extraterrestrial. The problem here is, as far as I can see, none of the satellites or planets around the sun look suitable for human colonization. And the prospect of, and our telescopes aren't good enough so we can say whether there are any elsewhere. But something that is 2 light years off or 5 light years off, even if it did look suitable for colonization, is not likely to attract it. Of course, you got to remember, light is the highest speed can be reached by light. It doesn't say that the solid body might not get higher. At the moment, of course, any solid body doesn't get even a fraction of the speed of light. But there's no intrinsic law that says that a rocket ship could not make 5 times the speed of light.
Is that why you wish you could go back and study physics now?
What?
You had said earlier you wish that you had studied physics. Is that why you?
Yes. No, I wasn't. If I'd gone to physics, I wouldn't have done that. I would like to have done that. But if I'd gone to physics, I'd probably gone into nuclear physics, which is an important subject, but I think rather dull. You tend to slow step forward.